So on this problem, first thing, we're going to find the, well, actually, before we even find the inverse, let's find the domain. Again, the domain, ladies and gentlemen, is for all the x values except for whatever makes our denominator equal to 0. And again, you can probably see this by inspection. But remember, for our domain, you can just set your denominator equal to 0 and find the values that make your denominator equal to 0, which in this case, you can see x is equal to -4. Therefore, when x equals -4, my denominator is equal to 0. That means my domain is all the numbers, all real numbers, except for -4. So if you were to look at that as a number line, here's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's -4. It's all numbers that way, all numbers that way. -infinity to -4 union -4 to infinity. And then we can union them to connect. OK? We have to get good at doing domain and range. You guys will notice on your quiz, I ask domain and range a lot. All right? Practice, practice, practice. Now, the next thing is we need to find the inverse to find the range, right? So we replace this with y. Swap the variables. Now, again, why did we swap those variables that we talked about? Because remember, looking at the graphs, the x and y's are swapped from the function to the inverse. Do you guys agree with me now? Right? So that's graphically, you can see what happened. Algebraically, that's how we're representing it, is swapping our variables and now solving for y. All right. So going back to this equation over here that I solved from Algebra 1. If you have 5 over x, or if you have 3 equals 5 over x, you can't solve for x when it's in the denominator. So the first thing that I would teach in Algebra 1 is you have to get your variable off the denominator. So multiply by x on both sides. When doing that, you get 3x equals 5. Now you can divide by 3. X equals 5/3. So I have y plus 4 in my denominator. I have to get y plus 4 off my denominator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply by y plus 4 on both sides. Since I have a y plus 4 in the numerator and a y plus 4 in the denominator, by the division property, I am multiplying these two. So that means these two are separated by multiplication. I can apply the division property and divide them. Did you have a question or a comment? Yeah? OK. All right. Well, let me just finish, and we'll kind of see how close you got. So now I can simplify this. But I also kind of want to get rid of these parentheses here. So I'm going to apply distributive property. So I get yx plus 4x equals 2y minus 1. Let's do that a little bit lower down. Yx plus 4x equals 2y minus 1. Is everybody following me what I did so far? I think this is the point that you got to, right? OK. Now, again, going back to Algebra 1, if you have an equation, yes, Kenny? Well, yeah, I mean, what's 3 divided by 3 is? 1, right? 3 times 4 over 3 is 4, right? Divide out, divide out. However, like 3 plus 4 divided by 3 is not equal to 4, right? You can't cross them when they're separated by addition or subtraction. However, you might see addition and subtraction and say, well, you're doing that. No, I'm not. These two are separated by multiplication. So therefore, I can apply the division property. If you have a quantity divided by itself, it equals 1. Now, I need to solve for y, though. I can only solve for y when they're on the same side. So I get them on the same side by subtracting. Now, in the problem I did, 3x and x were like terms, right? I don't have like terms here, so I can't combine them. I could have done that at the same time, but I separated them. So I still have an issue, though, because I still have 2 y's, right? I need to get them down to 1 y. So what way can I solve for y by getting this? Yes?
I moved the 4x over.
Yep.
And I distributed xy out of x, or I factored out yx out of yx minus 2y plus 4x.
Well, you can't factor You can only factor a y out of here. But yes, but that's exactly the thinking that you need to do. Yes.
I moved all the terms that were with a variable to one side,
Okay.
and then I factored out, my factorizing was x minus 2 parentheses y plus 4. Because I did kind of a completing the square thing. So, I don't know how to explain it. It's really weird.
So you got it factored or formed as y minus 2. I'll have to go and check your factoring, but if you, I'll check your work here in a second, but if you just get the y's by themselves and then factor out a y, I'm not sure if you'll get the same answer as I did, or if you did, I'll have to take a look. Now I have my y is multiplied by a product. Now I can divide by that product. So if you guys look at this, my inverse function, f inverse of x is equal to a negative 4x minus 1 all over x minus 2. What is the domain of that function? All numbers except for x cannot equal 2. So my range looks exactly the same thing, but instead of a negative 4, it's now a negative 2. Okay. Now I will show you graphically. Did you get the same answer? Because I'm not sure if your factor